work in the IT department. I've been here 28 years. So I've dealt with a lot of the interaction between you and the truck and our computer system. So I don't work on it now, but the PeopleNet units I worked on, I still handle all the message forms. And so I'm very anxious to ensure that you all properly use the form messages in the truck, especially the arrived and departed messages for your loads. That helps our computer system a lot when you do that, especially if you are dropping a load and picking up a load in the same area. Sometimes the computer system gets confused. It doesn't remember that you finished the load or you're on to your next load already, and that can affect your scheduled loads. Especially in Blackwell, they do a lot of scheduled loads so that we know your load and the next load or the next two loads after that. And when you arrive at the last consignee, you should receive your next scheduled load. The thought there is now you can start planning for your next trip, instead of waiting until you've unloaded and then you've got to go figure out what you're going to do next. This way it just gives you a little bit, makes it easier for you to plan a little bit. And if you're waiting to get unloaded, then maybe you've got an hour to make some plans, if you will. The other thing that's irritating to me is on a lot of dispatches you're going to receive, it's going to say no trailer on it. That's because they don't know which trailer you're using. And if you don't send us the form messages, I don't know what trailer you have on you for that load. Now, if Ellie is going to be your dispatcher, she's going to call you and put it in the computer system if you haven't responded. But I get a report once a month of all the reefer fuel purchases. And if there's no trailer assigned, then I have to figure out what trailer it was that you were on. And it's just a big pain in the butt for me. And so I really want to encourage you to make sure that you use the form messages so that we understand what's going on. One of the form messages will ask you what your trailer number is. And so then it'll automatically add it into the system. Just makes it really easy for us to coordinate all that stuff. So I sort of jumped ahead of myself on this. Normally we introduce each other, so I'm going to ask, we'll start over here and ask you and just go around and tell me a little bit about yourself, how long you've been driving, what lane you're going to, that sort of thing.
Craig, I'm going into Blackwell, going to drive-in, and I've been driving a couple of years now.
Okay.
I was on the flatbed before.
My name's Scott. I'm going into reefer. I've been driving about 3 months. I used to work for Western Express and came over here looking forward to the opportunity.
Great.
Dijon, I've been working for about 3 years. I'm doing the reefer and yeah.
Okay.
I'm Juan from Detroit. Been driving about 28 years. I'm going to a glass division.
Okay.
My name's Nick. I'm from Road River, Oregon, the street. I've been driving for 51 years, and I worked here in 22 years ago in 2001, but I got cancer and I had to stay off the road for like 3 years, and then I finally came back home.
Well, great.
I'm going to be in the dedicated water.
All right.
I'm James, I manage yard.
Okay. Jared.
I'm Jared. I'm the orientation instructor, and I guess I'm Tyler today.
Okay.
Recording everything.
Well, I appreciate y'all choosing Combined and Blackwell to work for. I think it's a good company. Of course, I'm not a driver. I was in the Navy for 20 years and learned the IT stuff coming up. But I've been around trucking my whole life. And we just want to do well by you. And the more you can help us, the better everybody is, and how we can all become successful doing this. So just good communication, I think, is probably the number one thing that works for everybody. If you could communicate with us and let us know if there's a problem, or just, you know, talking to your dispatcher and saying what you're looking for your next load, or, you know, whatever you're looking for. We can't help you if you don't tell us about it. And we do want to help and make everybody successful here. Our latest payroll change was the over 10,000 mile thing, where you get an extra 20 cents a mile, or I think there's a couple of lanes that are even higher than that. Any of the over 10,000 miles per month. We send you an email after each payroll, and that gives you a modest breakdown, I guess, of your payroll. And then you can log into ADP and get your actual payroll stub. But the email will include each load that you did, the miles for each load, and that includes the deadhead miles, because of course we pay you for all miles. It gets a little bit confusing, because if you did a under 400 mile load, you know, we have the 400 mile mini where we pay you 400 miles for the first load of the day, and then plus the deadhead miles on top of that. If you do 2 of those small loads, though, the second load, we're only going to pay you actual miles, not the 400 miles. But all of that information is listed. We also list all of the advances you took off your fuel card and any reimbursements that we did. And it's important that you pay attention to that and look at it. We're really good at this stuff, but occasionally something gets dropped for who knows whatever reason. You need to let us know that there's an issue, you know, or at least ask why this happened, and maybe we can explain it to you or tell you, oh, it is a mistake. If it's a big mistake, we'll pay you right then. If it's a small mistake, we'll probably just carry it over to the next payroll and you'll get it caught up on the next one. But if you don't talk to us and you don't read the email, then you're going to lose out. So you want to pay attention to that and look at it. It's to your advantage. We had a programming issue. We had a couple of guys didn't get their 10,000 mile bonus, and it was because they had so many bonuses that it went to the third line, just something that we have to do for ADP. And apparently we hadn't had anybody over on the third line before, and the program was wrong. And so it was just drop them off, which is not good for you at all. But if you don't bring it to our attention, then we probably wouldn't even notice it. So it is important that you look at that stuff and make sure it's correct. Same thing with your load dispatches. Read them over, and if you see a problem with them, or some of the loads have directions built into them, if you don't like the directions and you think they could be better, pass it on, you know. Otherwise, the next guy that goes to the same place is going to get the same directions. So all that is important to review and make sure you understand the information in there. And sometimes you might find it doesn't make sense, or you're going to say that, hey, you can't get there that fast. So the faster you can do that, the faster we can get it corrected. And then we don't have anybody getting upset because you didn't show up on time, but you couldn't have ever made it. You still missed your appointment time, you know? That's where, if you just talk to your dispatcher and say, hey, you got me going 700 miles tomorrow, there's no way, you know? Well, you're right. I need to change that appointment. But it's better to find out the day before than the day of. So, just a reminder of what's going on.
In the email we get, will it say how many miles it is to your next destination?
It will tell you how many miles on the load. But there are a couple of exceptions to that. We've got one customer that wants us to drop down to I-40 and take I-25 up instead of going across I-80. The computer system is going to do the short miles, not going to do the long miles. So you will get the instructions that tells you to take the southern route to this customer because they don't want to go to the high elevations. And in that case, the miles probably will be incorrect. In fact, I can probably guarantee you that will be incorrect. But most of the time, yes, it does tell you how many miles for each trip it is. What else? It does give you the phone number of your dispatchers. So if you're in Blackwell, you get the same dispatcher over and over and over again. If you're on the combined side, it depends on where you're going next. But it will tell you who your current dispatcher is and their direct phone number, and it will tell you who your unloaded dispatcher is and their phone number. So we're not trying to hide anything from you. We want to make sure that you understand who to contact, that sort of thing. And you'll get your messages via the OBC and via email. So you get them in both places. I think it's easier to read the email than it is the OBC, but hey, whichever. The other thing that's sort of neat is the OBC allows us to do some requests automatically. For example, if you're not sure what the PM is on a trailer you picked up, you can do the OBC request and it will tell you what the PM stats are for that particular trailer. And it's an automatic system. So you send it out, it goes to the computer replies to you. So you can do it 24/7, you're not having to wait for a person. Usually within like 5 minutes you'll get a response back. The other thing is we've got request a form. We got like this many forms on the system, but cab cards, trailer registration, rider request, your annual driver stats, all of that stuff, you can request it and we'll send it to you. We'll email it to you, send it to a fax machine. If you're a heavy haul guy, we'll send it to the truck because the heavy haul guys have printers in their truck. But we can either use your email on file or a different email. There's a lot of different options. And if you find that there's something that you would like that's not there, request it. Because, you know, I'm sitting here in the office trying to think what you guys need or what we need, but I don't know. I'm not out on the road, so I don't know what you need. You need to tell me if there's something. We've got a rollover recap. You can request it, and it will send it to you. That's assuming your ELD is all electronic and you didn't get kicked out on paper log somewhere. But it does give you the previous week's rollover hours. You can do your time off and vacation requests on the computer. You can do a maintenance request to get repaired here in the yard through the system. And then of course you got your DVIRs that you have to do. But there's a lot of things in the computer that you can do. And if you can't get it to work or you don't understand it, contact us, we want to know. Questions like that probably should go to driver services. If they don't understand or can't figure it out, then they'll send it to me and ask me to help answer the question, but go for it. If you send just a free form message, it defaults to going to your dispatcher. So you can send a message that way. You can have some other choices of people where you can select to send the message to. But on default, if you send a message, it will automatically go to what we call dispatch, and it figures out who your current dispatcher is or who your last dispatcher was and sends the message to them. Any questions about any of that?
Is there an empty load option?
What's that?
If you have a empty trailer? So, when I was in the other department and I had moved a trailer someplace empty, they always told me to fill out a request form
Oh,
for it,
yeah.
and I couldn't find it on the thing.
No, all they want you to do is on a blank piece of paper, write down your route and send it in as a trip request, route request,
And just,
route something. It's on the TransFlow. It's one of the options.
Oh, okay, so just send the paper in through TransFlow that it
Yeah,
had an empty
so-
load.
That brings up a good point. When you're using the TransFlow, and let's see here. Let me get into that second. Accept it.
That
Okay.
came up a lot of times.
So they have a route sheet, number 8. So if you're going from Medford to Portland, just make it a super easy one. We already assumed that you just went straight up I-5. There was no weirdness about that. But let's say you were sitting in Klamath Falls and they sent you to Bend, and then they called you and said, oh, hey, we're turning you around. We're going to have you go pick up a load in Medford. So what you would want to do is show on your route sheet, you started out where you unloaded in Klamath Falls, you went to Bend or wherever you stopped, turned around, and then went back down to Klamath Falls and then over to Medford that way. If you don't do that, billing doesn't know how you went, and they're going to route you Klamath Falls to Medford, and you're going to lose out on those extra miles. Now, they don't want you to give them a road by road by road by road thing. But if you just said Medford, Bend, or a Klamath Falls, Bend, Klamath Falls, Central Point for your deadhead, then they'll route you that way, and then they'll assume that you just went Medford to Portland.
Right.
No big deal. We do record all your fuel stops. So when you stop and buy fuel, that becomes a via point on ours. So if you do Medford's to Roseburg, and you'll get Roseburg because you bought fuel there, and then to Portland. That's the way that they'll route it, via all the fuel stops that you do.
Yeah.
But other than that, you have to tell us if you had to go out a route, or there was flooding and you had to go a different route. You need to tell us. If you're not going point A to point B, you need to tell us that you went A to B to C to D
But
to get there.
telling you isn't good enough. You want the TransFlow with the paper.
Yes, that's how you tell us.
Just clarify.
Yeah,
because,
just write it down on a piece of paper. No.
This doesn't
Write it down on a piece of paper, take it, and send it to us. Because if you're talking to the billing or your dispatcher, that's one thing. But the dispatcher doesn't really communicate with billing on that level. Billing looks at the paperwork you send in,
Tell
and they do the routing based on your paperwork. So if you don't send any route in, you went point A to B, no detours. If you did something weird, that's when you need to include your route sheet, and just simply write it down. Keep it basic, but list down what you did. And sometimes they will check with your dispatcher. Hey, he went all the way to Seaside, Yep, we told them to go there. Okay, no problem. We'll route them that way. Gotcha. But they're gonna check, you know, and then they'll send it back to Roger or the department head and say, hey, this guy went 200 miles out of route. They're gonna see if that was an authorized 200 miles out of route.
Yeah.
But it's your advantage because then you get paid those extra miles.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the longest time, I was like, what is that? And then I never, anyway, it's clear to me now.
Okay, good. So the other thing we have, bill of lading, weight ticket. Okay, weight tickets. You know that you can get the CAT app on your phone and assign it to your fuel card, and so then it charges automatically.
Yeah, we did that yesterday.
Lumper pallet receipts, damage forms, inspection reports, cash receipts. So, you know, if you are buying something, you need to do the cash receipt thing. Training. Try not to use other. Every time you use the other document, it manually kicks it out, and the billing clerk has to figure out what it should have been. But if you don't have any other choice, go ahead and use it. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have it there. And then if you ever do have to get on paper logs, you have to turn the logs in, and driver logs is down at the bottom of the list. So you have to take pictures of those driver logs to turn them in.
I know that now.
Any questions or anything?